Welcome back in Live Now from Fox. I'm Austin Westfall. Let's get the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war. For that, we bring in national security analyst and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer. As always, Hal, good to see you. Let's get straight into the news. Ukraine has released video of its claimed sabotage operation against a Russian warship on Sunday in the Baltic Sea enclave of Kaliningrad, which Ukraine says disabled the vessel. This is yet another example, Hal, of Ukraine's success at sea. How did this sabotage operation go down?
Well, Austin, it's absolutely fascinating what happened there. They actually released. They said they had somebody on board, kind of admitting that they had someone who was an insider that was actually on board that went in there and allowed them to do it and set fire to it. Now, everyone is I don't say everyone, but many of us have looked at this saying you really kind of told too much because. That's not that tough to figure out who would have been on board, who would have had access and stuff. So I'm assuming whoever it was, they had safely speared them out of the area so that there was no harm to them. But then again, this is Putin's Russia. And if they can figure that out, they may go after their family or anyone they know in order to seek retribution. But this frigate, which is actually a Corvette, they got on there, they set fire to it, they caused some serious damage. This is Kaliningrad. This is a little enclave that's right between Lithuania and Poland. It's kind of a vestige of wars past, if you will. It's something that the Soviet Union took over from Germany at the end of World War II, and it's on the Baltic Ocean. And it's fascinating because this area, not just a few weeks ago, there was a Russian military exercise where they fired a couple of missiles and they managed to hit their own ship and caused severe damage. And by one report said that the ship was sinking or it was sunk. And that's still, we're still trying to figure out if that is actually the case, but that was a military exercise. They seem to be having a lot of problems. Now, I should mention GUR or GUR, the Ukrainian military intelligence force, has made some rather spectacular attacks well beyond Ukraine, out to in fact, recently out to 750 miles away from the border, these deep strike things, and it's changing the nature of the war.
Now, I heard the word Corvette. Many of us probably consider a Corvette to be a vehicle, but really what we're talking about is a warship. Can you explain what a Corvette is?
A Corvette, and it goes back in history. Corvettes are they're like small, sleek frigates, if you will. They're not big like a destroyer or something like that. Destroyer's not huge, but it's a pretty good sized ship. Corvettes have always been these fast-moving ships. This was a missile corvette, which is very common that you would have light armaments, maybe a deck gun or two, or light guns, and then it'd fire missiles. And the whole purpose is that they can move in shallow waters very quickly. And of course, the Baltic is relatively shallow waters. So it's the sort of ship that you would expect, surface combatant, if you will, that would be operational in the Baltic Sea, where it could move in and around, the Baltic states or in and around the Scandinavian states like Sweden and Finland, stuff like that. So that would be a logical ship choice for that area.
Why is the Baltic Sea important in this war?
Well, the Baltic Sea, or as it's been nicknamed, Lake NATO, is absolutely critical. Russia does not have that many outlets to the ocean. You look at Russia on the map and go, wow, it's surrounded by ocean. A lot of that ocean is the Arctic, which freezes in for a good chunk of the year. And then if you go down the coast of Vladivostok, even it has freezing issues. So when it comes to year-round ports, they're rather limited. That's why the Black Sea, where the Ukraine war has been so active, is such critical to them because it's the year-round warm water port. The Baltic is one of the few areas they can get in and out. But at the end of this, when the Soviet Union fell, they lost most of the territory they had there, which was the Baltic states, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. That were right there. So those are now NATO countries. And if you go up north, Finland is now a NATO country. Sweden is now a NATO country. And of course, Poland, Denmark are NATO countries. If you go further out, Germany, Germany, not further out, but further out, Norway, those are all NATO countries. So basically this very small body of water, which is absolutely critical for commerce and crucial for Russia, is now controlled by NATO countries, and it's a shallow body of water. One of the problems that the Russians have is they have a number of ships, particularly submarines, that are rather large, and their submarines have a difficult time maneuvering in those shallow waters. Sweden, on the other hand, has submarines that are actually designed to maneuver very well and very quietly in shallow waters like that. So Sweden becoming a member of NATO is absolutely critical in the Baltic Sea.
I know you're no stranger to the Baltic Sea. This particular story comes out of the Baltic Sea. You and I have discussed extensively about Ukraine's success in the Black Sea. Is it fair to say that Ukraine has overperformed at sea throughout the course of this most recent iteration of the war?
Well, I would say in terms of naval warfare, absolutely. It is really amazing. Here's a country that literally, since the start of the war, has had no navy to speak of. They lost their ships, so to speak. And what they've done is they've used drones to include unmanned surface drones, even unmanned underwater vehicles, which that's not quite clear how effective those have been. But the unmanned surface drones have been absolutely remarkable. These are I don't know what you want to call them. They look like boats, but they are basically a kamikaze drone that basically drives very quickly, fairly fast for a surface ship, into a ship, in some cases into a bridge like the Kerch Bridge that connects Russia with Crimea in the south. And they've been very effective. And then, of course, unmanned drones have been very effective. Of course, taking out the flagship for the Black Sea Fleet, which was the Moskva. Now, Baltic, of course, is near and dear since I was just there a few weeks ago, very close to Kaliningrad. So this is and working on maritime security matters while I was there. So this is obviously something that I am rather focused on. And have some rather recent visual memories, shall we say, of what that part of the world looks like.
We're watching the Baltic Sea closely, as always. I do want to ask a little bit about the fighting on land as well, though. This is video from Vladimir Zelensky as he was visiting sites that are being fortified in the northeastern city of Kyiv. How is Ukraine faring on the battlefield right now, Hal?
Well, they're having a tough time. They really do need that U.S. aid package. They need those armaments to flow in. Europe has really stepped up in a number of ways, pledging more aid, arranging more creative ways to get them aid, to get them armaments. That deal where the Czech Republic basically brokered a deal, which is going to get them, I think by the time it's done, somewhere between 2.25 to 2.5 million rounds of ammunition, just a phenomenal amount of ammunition for their, for artillery ammunition, for their 155, 152, and I think also for their 122 artillery pieces. That makes a big difference. But what really is needed is that $61 billion package that's currently sitting in the House of Representatives. That needs to get out there. They need that. The reason you see the fortifications is because they are no longer on the offense. The spring or summer offensive of last year is over. There have been some modest gains by the Russians at extraordinary cost in loss of personnel, in loss of arms, in loss of tanks and armored vehicles and everything else. They have taken phenomenal losses, but Russia's willing to take those losses. What Ukraine's had to do is to move from an offensive posture into a very defensive posture, and that's where you see those trenches, those fortifications. You're also going to see minefields. And there's a variety of other things that are really aimed at defensive warfare that they're working on. By the way, I might mention something. Numerous reports coming out. The Russians have been using chemical weapons against Ukrainians, weapons of mass destruction. And that is crossing a red line in everyone's book. But that's what it looks like what the Russians are doing.
And then let's expand on that a little bit. What are the reports coming out and what are we hearing on that front?
Well, what they're doing is basically what the reports are is they're trying to terrify or terrorize the Ukrainian people by using these chemical weapons. Some of the weapons may be nothing more than like what we call CS or something akin to like pepper spray or something like that, basically to cause panic in the line. Some of it is probably there have been reports that some of it might be some type of nerve agent that they're using on the lines as well. This goes back to literally what we saw the Russians enable the Syrians to do in Syria, and that goes back well over a decade. And that was where President Obama said, I'm going to draw a red line at the use of chemical weapons. And then the U.S. never really did anything when he did that. Certainly that was very much remembered by Putin. And so he's using chemical weapons, and I'm sure his thinking is, I'm probably not going to see any big response by NATO or anybody else to chemical weapons. And frankly, so far, I haven't seen any big response to that, but it is something it's in the news. It's been noted, numerous reports, and I think it's very credible.
Let's take one. I want to touch on one more thing before we take a break, actually, Hal. The U.S. military said Tuesday that it has handed Ukraine an array of small arms and ammunition it had seized from Iranian forces as they tried to deliver them to Houthi rebels in Yemen. Take a look at the picture on your screen. We're talking about a pretty large cache of weapons here, Hal. What's the significance of this for Ukraine's fight?
Well, it's in terms of the total weapons, the total armaments, everything helps. Okay, 5,000 AK-47s. That's not a huge amount, but it certainly is enough that you could outfit a brigade or two with that and the sniper rifles, machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and of course that ammunition. All of this would help immensely, and that literally is the sort of infantry weapons that could outfit one or two brigades of Ukrainian infantry. So that helps. I think the symbolism is more significant because Iran has been supporting Russia all along. It's been sending them drones that they've been using against the Ukrainians and other things that have been helping them out. And of course, they're kind of they're allies, for lack of a better term. So the significance of being able to take weapons that Iran is using to foment terrorism and war in the Middle East, and then send it to Ukraine where it could be used against their one of their biggest allies. I think that's probably has more political import than the number of weapons or rounds of ammunition that were actually sent.
All right, Hal, we're going to wrap up our conversation about the Ukraine-Russia war for now, but I want to take a quick commercial break and then come back and talk to you about another ally of Russia's, China. That's been in the news as of late. We're going to take a commercial break. We're back in 2 minutes.